The metal chains around her wrists were too tight. Lyra didn't flinch. She stood tall, her silver eyes full of quiet anger. Her long violet hair was tied back roughly, and her royal robes had been replaced with a plain white dress, loose, lifeless. Behind her, 2 guards marched in silence. Their armor was human, cold and gray, like the ship that brought her here. She was not walking to freedom. She was walking to a marriage, a forced one. The doors of the great hall opened. Lyra stepped inside. Dozens of humans stared at her from long tables. Some wore uniforms. Others looked like leaders. Their faces were hard. Their eyes judged her silently. At the far end stood Captain Elias Vorn, the man she was to marry. He looked tall, strong, and human. His black hair was short, his face unreadable. His eyes met hers, but he didn't smile. Good, she thought. Let him know I am not weak. The speaker, an old human ambassador, raised a hand. This marriage joins the Orolith royal bloodline with the Terran alliance. Peace shall follow. Hostility will end. Witness now the binding of 2 worlds. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. Her people had lost the war. Her father had surrendered. And now he had given her a way to seal the peace. To a human. She had not spoken to Elias. She didn't want to. And yet, the marriage bond would be final. They stood side by side at the altar. A translator drone hovered nearby, repeating the words in both languages. Do you accept this union under the Interstellar Accord? Elias spoke first. I accept. His voice was calm, controlled. He didn't even glance at her. Then they waited. All eyes turned to her. Lyra didn't move. For 1 second, 2, 3. She kept her silence. A guard stepped forward. Speak, he hissed. Lyra looked at Elias. He didn't threaten. He didn't force. He just waited. She swallowed her pride. I accept, she said coldly. The crowd clapped politely. The ceremony ended. They were now husband and wife. But there was no love. No kiss. Just chains being unlocked. And a quiet walk back to their new quarters. Inside the living chamber, the door closed behind them with a soft hiss. Lyra stood still, eyes on the floor. She waited for the cruelty to begin. But nothing happened. She looked up. Slowly. Elias had walked across the room. He took off his uniform jacket, placed it on a chair, and picked up a blanket. He pointed to the bed. You can take it. Lyra stared at him. What? I'll sleep on the floor, he said simply. She narrowed her eyes. Are you playing a game with me? No. Then why be kind? I don't hurt people just because I'm told to, he said. You didn't choose this. Neither did I. She blinked. Was this a trick? Was he pretending to be gentle so he could control her later? I don't trust you, she said. I don't expect you to. He placed a pillow on the floor and laid down without another word. Hours passed. Lyra sat on the edge of the bed, wide awake. She listened to the quiet breathing of the man who was now her husband. He hadn't touched her, hadn't yelled, hadn't ordered her around. He just slept. It made no sense. Back on her homeworld, she had been taught that humans were violent, greedy, and cold. But this Captain Vorn was not like the soldiers she had seen before. She didn't trust him. Not yet, but tonight, for the first time since she left her home, she wasn't afraid. She lay back slowly, keeping her eyes on him until sleep finally came. She woke up sweating, heart pounding, breath shaking. For a moment, she thought she was still in chains. But then she turned and saw him, asleep on the cold floor, wrapped in just a blanket. He hadn't touched her, not even once, earlier that night. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Lyra sat on the edge of the large human bed. The soft fabric felt strange. Under her fingers, Her people slept on woven mats, close to the earth. But this bed felt like a trap. Like comfort offered too quickly. Elias said nothing. He had turned off the lights, except for a small reading lamp. Then, without speaking, he spread his blanket on the floor and lay down with his back to her. Lyra kept watching him. Waiting for the moment. He would get up. Waiting for the mask of kindness to fall. But he never moved. 1 hour passed. Then, another. She got up quietly and walked to the corner where her robe had been folded. She touched the edge, the fabric soft against her palm. This wasn't how she imagined her first night would go. She had expected violence. Orders. Chains again. Instead, nothing. And somehow, that silence was harder to bear. Midnight. A strange sound startled her. A hum. Low, deep, steady. She looked at Elias. His eyes were closed, his face calm. He was humming, no snoring, just lightly. Lyra tilted her head. So even warriors sleep like that. She wrapped her arms around herself and walked to the window. Outside, Earth's night sky was different from her own world. No twin moons. No golden stars. Just cold silence. I didn't ask for this, she whispered from behind. Her, a quiet voice replied, neither did I. She turned, startled. Elias was awake, sitting up now. You're awake? She said, stepping back. Couldn't sleep. Then why lie still for hours? I didn't want to scare you. Lyra's voice caught in her throat. He was serious? You don't need to pretend, she said. You can stop now. Whatever. This act is just stop. I'm not pretending, Elias said gently. I don't want you afraid in my presence. She clenched her jaw. Then why did you agree to this marriage? He looked down. Because the only other option was war again. That quieted her. They both stood in silence for a long moment. Later, Lyra lay on the bed again, her back to him. She didn't trust him. But for the first time, she was unsure why. He hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't treated her like property. In fact, he had treated her with more respect than her own father, who gave her away. The thought made her chest tighten. She whispered to herself, what kind of enemy is kind? She closed her eyes. Sleep finally came. Morning. Sunlight filled the room. Elias was gone, his blanket folded neatly on the chair. A tray sat on the table, fresh food, warm tea, and a small note written in both languages. Eat if you're hungry. No rush, I'll return later. E. Vornch. Stared at the note for a long time, then picked up the tea, and took a slow sip. It wasn't poison. It was sweet, and it warmed more than just her throat. Asterisk, her body shook. Her skin burned. She reached out in the dark, but her hand hit nothing. She was alone, drenched in sweat. She whispered weakly, water? And then suddenly strong hands caught her before she could fall. Earlier that evening, the days on Earth were colder than Lyra had expected. The wind bit through the walls. The air felt thick, heavy, and dry. Her body wasn't made for this planet. She didn't complain. She wouldn't give the humans that satisfaction, but her limbs had grown weak, her throat dry. Her head throbbed with heat. She sat quietly on the yawn edge of the bed, pretending to read the small tablet Elias had left her, but the words blurred. Her vision spun. She touched her forehead. It was burning. Elias returned later than usual. He entered silently, carrying a few supplies. When he saw her, he stopped mid-step. You look pale, he said. I'm fine. You're shaking. I said I'm. Her words stopped as she nearly collapsed. Elias dropped everything and rushed to her. She tried to push him away. Don't touch me. But he ignored her protest. He caught her before she hit the floor. You have a fever, he said calmly. I don't need your help. You need rest and water. She was too weak to fight, too dizzy to argue. Later, the lights were dim. A wet cloth rested on her forehead. She opened her eyes and saw Elias sitting by her bedside, dipping another cloth into cold water. "Why are you here?" she whispered. "You're sick." "I can take care of myself." "You already failed." "That part." She tried to sit up, but her arms wouldn't move. He gently adjusted the blanket. "I'm not doing this to win you over," he said. "I'm doing this because you're my responsibility now." "I'm not your responsibility," she snapped weakly. He didn't argue. He just sat there, changing the cloth, checking the temperature. Quiet, steady, patient, that night. She drifted in and out of fevered dreams, in one. She was running across the golden fields of her homeworld, in another. She was back in the throne room, her father signing the treaty that gave her away. And then Elias was there, not holding chains, but holding a warm drink, saying nothing, just present. She woke up crying. Elias didn't ask why. He just placed a warm towel in her hands. By morning, her fever had broken. Her body was sore, but her head was clear. The sun peeked through the window. She looked beside her. Elias had fallen asleep in the chair, his arms crossed, his head resting against the wall. He looked tired, not dangerous, cruel, just human. Lyra sat up slowly and whispered, "Why do you care?" His eyes opened. Without moving, he answered, "Because someone should." She looked away quickly, but her chest tightened. No one had said that to her in a long, long time. Later, he helped her walk to the window. Outside, the sky was cold and gray. Still Earth, still not home. But she didn't hate it as much today. "Thank you," she said softly. Elias didn't answer. He just nodded and stood quietly beside her. And for the first time, she didn't mind the silence. Lyra stood behind the wall, frozen. She hadn't meant to hear the conversation, but the voice was clear. "If you don't use her, we'll reassign her to someone who will." The voice was human and full of cold authority. 1 hour earlier, it was a quiet morning. Lyra sat by the window, sipping warm tea. The fever was gone. Her strength was slowly returning. Elias had left early. He said someone important was coming. She didn't ask who, but she could tell. Something in his voice was tense. The door opened. Without warning, Lyra quickly stepped into the side room. Unseen. She didn't want to meet anyone new. She just wanted peace. But then she heard the voice. A sharp, powerful voice. Male. Human. "Captain Vorn, we gave you a wife, not a guest." It was a general. Lyra froze in place. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the curtain as she listened. Inside the room, Elias stood tall, unshaken. "She's not property," he said firmly. "And she's not a tool for your politics." The general laughed coldly. "You're too soft. She's an alien. Her kind almost destroyed one of our colonies. She was a princess, not a soldier. She's a symbol. If you don't show control, others will." Elias didn't reply. So the general stepped closer. "This is a command, Captain. Either you act like her husband, or we find someone else." "Who will?" Silence. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. And Elias answered. Slow, steady, controlled. "You can take me off this mission, strip my title, throw me in prison if you want, but I won't hurt her. Not now. Not ever." The general's boots moved angry steps toward the door. "You're a fool, Vorn." The door slammed shut. Lyra stepped out. Elias turned and froze. She was staring at him, her eyes wide with something he'd never seen before. Not anger, not fear, but something close to understanding. "You heard?" he asked. She nodded. "All of it." He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't want you to know. Why not? Because I didn't want you to feel like a burden. Lyra stepped closer. Her voice was soft. They threatened you because of me. Yes, and you didn't back down. No. There was silence between them again. But this time, it wasn't heavy, Dot. It was safe. Later that evening, Lyra stood alone on the balcony. The wind was cold, but her chest felt warm. Dot. Elias had protected her. Dot. Not because of duty, but because he wanted to. Because somewhere, deep inside, he cared. She looked up at the stars. This world still wasn't home. But it wasn't as cruel as she thought. Not while he was in it. She froze. The small box on her pillow hadn't been there before. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, a glowing crystal marked with her family crest. A sacred relic she thought was lost in the war. No soldier could have found it unless he had searched just for her. Earlier that day, Lyra walked the halls of the outpost with careful steps. Eyes still followed her, but not with hate. Not with fear, just curiosity. Some saluted her. Some nodded. It was strange, like the walls had softened, like something inside her was changing. She hated to admit it, but Elias's quiet presence had started to feel familiar. Later, Elias returned from patrol, a little later than usual. His clothes were dusty. His eyes tired. Lyra noticed a faint scratch on his cheek. What happened? She asked before she could stop herself. He looked surprised, then smiled. Nothing serious, just rough terrain. She nodded, but something inside her tightened. Why? Should she care? Why did she feel this heat in her chest? She said nothing more, and neither did he. That night, Lyra entered their shared room after dinner. Elias wasn't there yet, but something was. On her pillow, a small wooden box, old and carved by hand. Curious, she sat on the edge of the bed and opened it slowly. Inside lay a glowing blue crystal, round and smooth. Her breath caught. Her hands shook. It wasn't just any stone. It was the heart of Solaria, royal heirloom passed from mother to daughter in her bloodline. She had lost it the day the palace fell. She never thought she'd see it again. Footsteps. She turned quickly. Elias stood in the doorway, watching her reaction. You found it, she whispered. He nodded. I pulled some favors. Traded some credits. It was in a collector's vault in a black market. I thought, maybe it meant something to you. Lyra clutched the stone to her chest. She looked up at him, and for the first time, her voice broke. It means everything. He stepped back. I didn't do it for thanks. Just wanted you to have it. No, she said softly. You didn't do it for me. He looked confused. She smiled. You did it because of me. Moments later, she sat near the window, the stone glowing in her hands. Elias quietly sat across the room, giving her space. The silence between them was no longer cold. It was warm. Safe. Like a fire on a frozen night. Lyra glanced at him. I thought kindness was a weakness, she said. And now? Now I wonder if it's the strongest thing in the galaxy. Elias didn't reply, but he didn't need to. The gift had said more than words ever could. The first explosion shattered the glass. The second knocked her off her feet. Alarm screamed. Smoke filled the room. Lyra reached out in panic. But Elias was gone. 1 hour earlier. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. Lyra had just placed the crystal back into its box. She felt calm, balanced. Whole. Elias sat near the window, reading a report. The sky was dark outside. Stars glittered like dust. No danger. No warning, until the lights flickered. Then came the first blast. The floor shook. Walls trembled. And the window behind Elias exploded inward. They hit the ground. Screams echoed through the base halls. Under attack. Breach on the eastern wall. Lyra's heart raced. She crawled toward Elias, but smoke clouded her vision. Then, another explosion, and he was gone from sight. She rose, coughing, stumbling through the debris. "Elias!" she shouted. No answer. Only chaos. Flashing red lights. Running. Soldiers. Fires. And among the chaos alien troops. Not human. Not hers. A third force. A group had broken the treaty. Lyra backed into a corner, her eyes wide. A tall enemy soldier saw her. He raised his weapon. She had no armor. No shield. No weapon. Then a shot rang out. The attacker dropped. Behind him, Elias stood, blood on his brow, rifle in hand. "I told you," he said, breathing hard. "I won't let anyone hurt you." They ran together. Through smoke and fire, side by side. Every hallway was a war zone. Cadets injured, officers down. Lyra grabbed a weapon from the floor, unfamiliar but light. "I don't know how to use this," she said. "I'll show you," Elias replied, handing her a spare energy cell. "No. Time for training. Just follow me." In the lower corridor, an enemy squad had pinned 2 young human soldiers behind a broken wall. Without thinking, Lyra moved fast. She slid behind cover, aimed, and fired. The shot hit. The enemy turned. Confused, Elias fired next 2 down. The cadets were saved. One looked at Lyra, stunned. "That's the alien wife." "No," Elias said. "That's the one keeping us alive." Outside, in the landing zone, escape ships were being readied, but more enemy dropships were arriving. The base was going to fall if no one acted fast. "Have to seal the hangar," Elias said. "But that means staying behind," Lyra replied. He looked at her. "I know." She looked back at the cadets they had just saved, the wounded officers, the mess hall where she once stood alone, and then she said, "Then we stay." Together, they fought their way to the control panel. Enemy fire rained down. Elias took a blast. To the shoulder. Lyra dragged him behind cover. "You saved me before," she whispered. "Now it's my turn." Her hands flew across the controls. The gates sealed. The hangar was locked. No more enemies could get in, but they were still. Inside. Trapped. Bleeding. Breathing. Alive. Together. Silence fell at last. The battle was over. Rescue. Teams arrived 20 minutes later. They found the 2 of them, leaning against the wall, her hand holding his. Later that night, wrapped in a thermal blanket, Elias sat quietly. Lyra stood near him, still holding the sacred crystal. She looked at him and said, "You said once that you didn't ask for this?" He nodded slowly. "Neither did I," she continued. "But if I had known what I'd find, I might have chosen it." He looked up at her. This time, she didn't look away. She stood in front of the council, a room full of her own people. After so long, she was free, but her heart wasn't. "Do you wish to return to Orlith?" the elder asked. Her eyes turned to the human who stood silent at the edge of the room. She was supposed to hate him, but her voice broke as she whispered, "I don't know what home means anymore." 3 weeks earlier, after the attack, both Lyra and Elias were treated like heroes. Even the humans who once looked at her with suspicion now nodded in quiet respect. Spread fast, an alien wife fought to save a human base. Her people had heard the story too. And now they had come for her. The ship from Orlith landed the day before. Her older brother, Prince Kale, stepped out. He had survived the war. He now stood as the future ruler. He hugged her tightly. "You were strong," he said. "Father would be proud." "I survived," she answered softly. "You don't have to stay here anymore," Kale said. "We've come to bring you home." Lyra said nothing, because something inside her twisted Was that still home? That evening, she sat alone on the balcony, staring at Earth's quiet stars. Elias stepped outside, hands in his coat pockets. "So," he said, "they're taking you back?" Lyra nodded. "It's what I was trained for, what I always believed I wanted. But," she looked at him, eyes unreadable. "But, it doesn't feel like freedom." He didn't speak. She stepped closer. "You never owned me. You never forced me. You only protected me. And I still will," Elias said, voice low. "I know," she whispered, "even if I go." The next day, inside the Hall of Judgment, the Orolith Council stood in robes of deep blue. Lyra was dressed in her royal garments, again symbols of her bloodline across her shoulders. She didn't feel like a princess anymore. She felt different. The elder spoke. "You were taken through force. Now we offer your freedom back." Lyra nodded. "Do you wish to return home?" Silence filled the room. She looked toward Elias, standing respectfully behind the soldiers. He had said nothing. He had not asked her to stay. And yet, she felt everything in his silence. Then she spoke, slowly, clearly, from the heart. "I came here in chains. I expected cruelty. I expected pain." She looked around at both sides of the room, humans and aliens. "But I found something else. I found someone who didn't see me as property, who didn't raise a hand or voice, who stood between me and danger, even when his own people turned against him." She turned fully toward Elias. "I came here as part of a treaty." Her eyes softened. "But I stayed because of trust. I do not belong to either side now. I belong where kindness lives." She paused. "And that place is with him." Gasps echoed, but no one interrupted. Elias blinked once, but didn't move. She stepped down from the platform, walked past the guards, and stood beside him. No crown, no chains, just choice. That night, they sat on the quiet hill behind the base stars overhead. Silence between them. "I thought you'd leave," Elias said. "I almost did. And now?" She smiled softly. "Now I'm exactly where I choose to be." He looked at her, unsure. What to say, Dotch? She leaned her head on his shoulder. "No more chains," she whispered. "No more fear." He nodded. "Just us." The end.